Welcome to the Know. I'm Ashley Jenkins.
I'm Mica Burton.
Pop quiz hotshot. What do you do when you announce a partnership with one of gaming's most shady companies and then suddenly you're in the middle of a wave of internet backlash?
Oh.
It's easy. You just pretend like you didn't know about any of their shady practices, or even worse, maybe you really didn't because you didn't do due diligence, and so you just demand they change them or the partnership's over.
Well, that's exactly what happened with developer Gearbox and controversial Steam key reseller G2A this week, when the two companies announced that the collector's edition of the remastered Bulletstorm Full Clip Edition would exclusively be sold through G2A.
And now it's all up in glorious, glorious flames. Internet flames. Gearbox has now reportedly pulled out of the deal with G2A, a very public failure for the Steam key reseller, which has been struggling to gain legitimacy in the PC gaming marketplace.
But before we untangle all of that internet webby goodness, let's give a little bit of background of how we got here. Bulletstorm Full Clip Edition released today. It's actually getting so-so reviews. So the collector's edition was supposed to be a fun bonus for PC gamers who wanted a little bit more out of their experience. The catch was that you could only get it on G2A.
If you're unaware, G2A has a little teeny tiny bit of a troubled history for running a gray marketplace that sometimes resells Steam keys on the cheap.
Some PC gamers love this because, you know what? They just don't care. They just give them cheap games. But it sometimes screws other gamers because they end up buying keys that have been obtained through fraudulent means, usually by credit card theft, which is a no bueno. And unless you pay for insurance from G2A...
Insurance.
Which is a thing, you don't actually get your money back if you buy a key that's no bueno. So that whole insurance thing is one of G2A's more scrutinized features, if you could call it that, since it feels an awful lot like a mafia racket.
Oh, it's a nice Steam key you got there. Be a shame if anything happened to it. On top of all that, game developers lose a ton of money to these scams as people often buy the keys in bulk with stolen credit cards. The developer has to refund the money to the credit card, but the keys are still out there in the wild. Now, they could cancel them all, but then they're left with a PR mess because they look like the jerks who's canceling keys on that people actually paid money for because people did pay money for those keys. They paid it to the scammer instead of the developer.
G2A isn't the only marketplace that facilitates this type of transaction, but it's certainly the biggest and one of the more questionable ones. They've made a few gestures to try and ease this perception of them, like giving developers a cut of sales through G2A Direct, but many don't see that as going far enough.
Anyway, back to this week. After the announcement for Bulletstorm hit, YouTuber Total Biscuit had some choice things to say about both Gearbox and G2A. He wrote about Bulletstorm, pulling coverage plans for it, and future Gearbox titles, no support for crooks.
Ouch. The tweet made some waves and Gearbox actually responded. They sent out a statement to a number of outlets writing, Gearbox Publishing heard loud and clear the concerns voiced by John, Total Biscuit Bain.
Now, as such, they apparently worked with Bain to create a set of demands, which are basically a greatest hits list of all the problems people generally have with G2A. Gearbox published those demands and said that if G2A didn't abide by them,
those ransom demands included making G2A Shield, the customer fraud protection service, free instead of a paid subscription. It also included opening up the G2A API so that developers and publishers could flag fraudulent keys for immediate removal.
They also demanded for an implementation of throttling for non-certified users attempting to post huge numbers of keys at a time. Plus, they asked for them to restructure the payment system so that customers who wish to buy and sell legitimate keys are given a clear, simple fee structure that's easy to understand and contains no hidden or obfuscated charges. That all those things seem like they'd be huge improvements to a service, right?
Gearbox gave G2A until the release of Bulletstorm Full Clip on Steam to comply, which was basically just 24 hours. Since the demands weren't met, Gearbox announced in a statement to Waypoint today, Gearbox Publishing will be doing their part to not directly support a marketplace that did not make the new public commitment to protecting customers and developers requested by Gearbox Publishing.
Whew, well, they sure get out of that one. So there's the whole saga. And this isn't the first time either company's come under fire. And it's not the first time for this particular game either.
When the remaster of Bulletstorm was first announced, PC owners of the original got into a bit of an uproar when it was revealed that they wouldn't get the remastered version for free. That's typically been the case when remasters hit the master race, and we saw that happen with titles like BioShock and Skyrim. Those titles came with a price tag on the console, but if you already own the original on PC, you got the upgrade for free.
I got the upgrade for free. That wasn't the case with Bulletstorm Full Clip though. According to CEO Randy Pitchford, it simply wasn't possible to release the version of the game for free on PC because it was originally published by EA. When a number of fans called him out about that, pointed pointing to Darksiders War Mastered, which was originally released by THQ, but still republished by Nordic Games as a free upgrade on PC. Pitchford again said, different case. In that instance, Nordic purchased all rights to the franchise, which is not what happened with Gearbox and Bulletstorm. They're simply helping People Can Fly release the game.
So it's not Gearbox's first controversy rodeo, that's for sure. They've also come under fire for the most famous vaporware of all time, Duke Nukem Forever, which Gearbox finally released in 2011 after 12 years of development by 3D Realms.
There was also that whole Aliens Colonial Marines disaster when the much anticipated game that looked super duper awesome thanks to rather misleading marketing debuted to Metacritic scores down in the 40s.
Yikes! You know your game is bad when it ultimately leads to a class action lawsuit, which is actually what happened. In Gearbox's defense, they formally countered the lawsuit back in 2014, pushing the advertising blame onto Sega, the game's publisher.
Now, as for G2A, they also live life in the crisis lane, so it's kind of a match made in heaven, really.
I mean, are any of us really surprised they partnered up at this point? Jesus. But we've already talked about why the company is viewed in such a negative light thanks to those key reselling practices, and it's come back to bite them multiple times in the past.
Last year, indie developer TinyBuild accused G2A of selling more than $450,000 worth of Steam keys without a single bit of profit coming back to the developer for their trouble.
In the post, the CEO of TinyBuild wrote, "Websites like G2A are facilitating a fraud-fueled economy where key resellers are being hit with tons of stolen credit card transactions, and these websites are now growing rapidly due to low pricing of game keys."
The list doesn't stop there either. Devolver Digital lodged a similar complaint about them back in 2014. The CEO of Tryon Worlds claimed none of their bargain keys were legitimate, and a number of other developers have banned them altogether.
More recently, they hosted a horrendous AMA where they hoped to clear the air about the company and its practices, and it didn't go well at all.
No, it did not.
After enduring questions from angry gamers for hours, one took it in his hands to show how easy it is to manipulate their system and sell a bad key. And they responded by banning him from their platform.
Well, he was doing bad things on it, so that makes sense.
For shame.
So what happens now? At the moment, the order page is still up for the collector's edition, but it sounds like the two parties are working out how to close this whole thing down, or at the very least, Gearbox is.
This all worked out rather well for them from a PR perspective. Either they didn't bother to research G2A or just ignored what they knew about them, made a bad call, then got to look like the good guy for publicly backing out of the agreement.
Good-ish guy. On G2A's side, this certainly doesn't look good at all either. These direct requests, they're all reasonable things that people have been asking of the Steam reseller for quite some time now, and not complying when a major publisher is also offering you money doesn't really speak too well of G2A's intentions to change and continue to address the concerns people have about their business. They don't care.
Yeah, they like being shady.
Well, it's like they do what they do and they're making enough money off it, and it's going to be very difficult to shut them down because, again, the developers look like the jerks if they cancel keys that were purchased with stolen credit cards. And so the developers are sort of left hanging there, but G2A is still making the money as long as people are using the service, and there's a segment of the PC gaming audience that, like, they're not pirating games, they're buying them, they're putting their money down, they just want to do it as cheaply as possible, and they don't want to look too hard at where those keys are coming from.
So G2A will just have to live and fight another day, and let's be honest, they certainly will, because gosh darn it, like Ashley was saying, people love those cheap Steam keys.
Now, what do you guys think of the public spat between Gearbox and G2A? Let us know in the comments.
For future updates on more publisher beef with G2A, this probably won't be the last, let's be really honest. Like this video and subscribe to The Know.
Welcome to The Know, I'm Ashley Jenkins.
I'm Mica Burton.
Pop quiz hotshot. What do you do when you announce a partnership? Yeah, that was from Speed. We just found out that Speed came out the year Mica was born.
I'm a small.
So that's why it's so tiny.
I'm so tiny.
I'm gonna do that over again.